Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Today is the fifth week, and we will go through the theories of integrated marketing communication and communication. Integrated marketing communication for the program is for MBA and MS students. The topic the topics which we will cover today is the theory of communication, five theories of response models, EDA model, hierarchy of effect model, innovation adoption model, information processing model, and operational model. The purpose of these things or these theories is to understand how the communication or the integrated marketing communication works, and on which stages or when the marketeers use the communication theories, or when to decide on the communication. So how these theories works. So before the 20th century, there was different type of marketing. Different type of marketing which was before the 20th centuries, there was a different type of marketing. Business promotes their products and service, and they were focusing to the individual behavior of their consumers. So the involvement is impersonal campaigns that aggressively tried to convince consumer to make purchases. They were less focused on the consumer satisfaction with goods and services. These tactics ultimately was influenced or tried to be influenced with influence on or create influence on the consumer. Then the focus shifts. In the early 1950, the marketeers or the organization began to recognize the benefits of selling consumer already inclined to buy certain products. Marketeers examine the specific details of who their consumer were and what were their need and desire. So that's how the theories of behavior began to work on. So the purpose of integrated marketing communication is to continuous effort to plan and execute and evaluate the technique of selling and advertising a product by using traditional and non-traditional methods to promote. So when to make the promotion decisions, the organizations and the managers were focusing on those points, that they are aware of their consumer preferences of media watching, or they are or their preferences of the target market, how they use the media. And they were also focused on the knowledge of the consumer, that they can relate the products to the expected response. Setting different promotional tools, each tool for specific target, but all linked to acquire a common target. And then coordinating advertising, sale promotion, public relation as a potential strategies. continuous background information about the consumer they were collecting, an evidence-based approach when selling product in the certain brands. So IMC, as we discussed, is the two-way communication and promotional marketing function through which a target audience receives regular convincing and reinforcing brand messages in an integrated way and comprehensive way to move the buyers through the decision making process, a cognitive process. So the consumer theories are basically the natural extraction of the human behavior. They were extracted as human were behaving. So there is no the no single theory works works as, in a specific way. Each one provide a unique place in understanding the physiological process of the people and their patterns of consumption. So there are many theories available in the market. However, the four main theories which we are going to discuss. So basically, what is communication theory? Communication theory is a set of source, or the set of that theory, the credibility the theory accept of mass adoption on expertness and trustworthy. So there is a sender, there is a receiver, and that make a noise, and the source is valid. So the trustworthy is defined as the perceived willingness of the source to make valid assumption, and target audience expect increase with the experience of sources and ability of the audience to evaluate the product. So that's mean the message which is sent to the consumer, so it will be more healthier effect on the consumer when the source is expert in their products, and they are trustworthy. So for example, if Procter and Gamble sells the good products, and it is a trusty name in the market that Procter and Gamble is a good service or product provider, so the consumer will trust that message and listen to the noise when they create the noise. So as we discussed, there are several theories, but the main fourth theory is Marshallian economics theory. So we will go through that and discuss a brief. Alfred Marshall was an economist who believed that consumers buy their products and services based on the offers, the most personal satisfaction. So there is a critical view on that as well, that this theory has been criticized, but that it is uniforming. So it is assumed that people buy what they like if they can afford it. However, the theory was given marketeers many useful hypotheses. Hypothesis. The physiological theory. The physiological theory traced back to Samuel Freud, the Austrian founder of the physiologist. Although he himself was not concerned with the consumer behavior, his theory of human behavior were revolutionary. He believed that humans are not able to fully understand their own motivation because the physiological factors that shape them are largely unconscious. So, in this theory, a major part of the unconscious mind is compressed of the strong urges and desires. Since these desires can cause significant guilt and shame when they surface, people will respond to them. According to the physiological theory, consumers respond to symbolic concern as much as they respond to those economics of function. So that means that people respond to the symbols. That's why logos, symbols, and all those things are very important in this. The Freud work implies that external factors such as age and income cannot fully account for the consumer behavior because motivation lay deep in the back of the mind. Instead, marketing message that contain an emotional appeal to the consumer, feeling, hopes, and aspirations and fears are often more effective than rational appeal. So that was his theory. Then the Plewen theory. The Plewen theory comes with the Russian physiologist Pavlov. Pavlov theory is the famous experiment of Pavlov. Discovered that if he rang a bell immediately prior to feeding a dog, he could relevantly get the dog salivated just by ringing it. Mean the vagus nerve of the dog will activate with the ring when he trained the dog by ringing bell. He concluded that much of the human behavior is a result from conducting responses. So in this theory is from the Russian scientist Ivan Pavlov. In his famous experience of ringing the bell and prior to feeding the dog. The Pavlov's theory can prove highly useful for marketeers when establishing or reinventing a brand. Marketing can use this knowledge, help create or change consumer habits or influences. The other theory is the impulse buying theory. So the impulse buying theory is that many behavior focus on rational actions. Havkins Stream believed that heavily in the idea of impulse behavior. So he argued that buying impulse fit alongside rational purchases decision to paint a complete picture of the average consumer. Impulse purchases are driven likely by external stimulation and have almost no rational relationship to traditional decision making. So this impulse buying is basically when you go into the store, see a newspaper there and you just buy it. So this is the impulse buying theory. So now we've gone through the brief history, what is communication theory and why marketeer use the communication or integrated marketing communication to bring the cognitive process together. Now, what is the assumption? What are the assumption of the assumption on the consumer communication effect is an advertising reflect hierarchy model is the learning the cognitive process must occur before the attitudes or the effective stage, and which will lead to behavior again to the cognitive effect or make the decision. This is the common assumption of the communication models of the integrated communication model. To learn and then cognitive effect starts, thinking process must occur before the attitudes, then what you feel like, dislike, or do or not do, or what, and then the consumer come to the cognitive stage again, make the decision. So on these assumption based there are consumer behavior or on the prospects that the consumer think that itself the consumer take interest and the supply in their rational persuade the individual hand of market is used to achieve a distribution of the product in accordance with the consumer choice and effect. The hierarchy effect model is the consumer decision to purchase or not to purchase, or influence through advertising. In these models, is the hierarchy response of progression to learn and decision making one consumer expectation as a result of advertising. So, as we discussed earlier, there are 5 models of hierarchy of behavior. So, consumer across 3 stages of awareness, normally cognitive stage, affective stage, and behavioral stage. The 5 responsible hierarchy models are based on the response hierarchy model, explain the consumer response and behavior to advertising process. The model provide a complete understanding of response of the consumer through all stages of this path, unaware of the product to the purchase decisions. So the consumer behavior model is commonly used to determine how consumer behave in the market, and use many consumer behavior models. There are basic 5 models which we will discuss in this one. One is ADA model, hierarchy of effect models, innovation adoption model, information processing model, and operational models. These are the common models. So there are stages in these 5 models, that cognitive stage, effective stage, and behavior stage. So ADA model says that attention, interest, desire, and action. Similarly, hierarchy of effect models is awareness, knowledge, liking, preferences, conviction, and purchase. Then innovation adoption model says that awareness in the first stage, interest, evaluation, and trial in the final stage. Similarly, information processing model pursues attention, comprehension, validation, and retention behaviors. And operation model is non-evaluating thinking, evaluating thinking, and action is taken in those models. So now the needs or the purposes, or why those models has been used by the marketeers, what are the difference, or what are the different occasions that marketeers use that model. So ADA model is stand for the interest, desire, and action. The ADA model is used when the organization want to aware the consumer and bring him to the, or bring them to the purchase decisions. So the ADA model stands for interest, desire, and action. The ADA model is used in advertising to define the stages that exist from the time when the consumer first become aware of the product or brand, or when the consumer purchase a product. The ADA model is one of the most established model alongside all the response hierarchy models. The organization apply the ADA model to obtain necessary response from the target consumer through advertisement. This model can be operated successfully, stimulate the different emotion of the consumer and elements that are associated with positive consumer experience. So in ADA model, the awareness of the brand or the product take place in cognitive stage. The potential consumer develop an interest in the desire and purchase stage, and the product in the active stage. And purchase action actually take place in the last stage called the behavior stage. So this on these perspectives or on these grounds, the organization use the ADA model. The second model is the hierarchy of effect model. So when the organization want to influence the consumer through advertising, and influence this is their decision to purchase or not purchase a particular product or service. So this model applied by the consumer. The hierarchy of effect model, we can say that designed to influence through advertising on the consumer decision on purchase or not purchase a product or a service. The hierarchy says that the progression of learning and decision making consumer experience as a result of advertising. A hierarchy of effect model is also used to set up structured series of advertising messages objective for a particular product to build upon each successive object until the sales ultimately made. So these messages are continuously sent by the organization until the consumer start making the purchases. So the main objective of this campaign or this hierarchy effect model is to create awareness, knowledge and liking, preferences, and make them to behave. The behavior associated with the hierarchy effect can be break down into feel and do or cognitive effects or the cognitive behavior. The hierarchy effect model was created by Robert Gray in 1961. So if you want to go to the detail, you can see the Steiner 1961 article, a model of prospective measurement and advertising in innovation purchase. Then the third model, which is commonly used in the communication, is the diffusion of elevation. So this model is used by the organization when the organization want that their consumer adopt an innovation or a new product or a new service. So based on this theory or this assumption, the organization develop their communication plan on this theory. The consumer the information diffusion of innovation. Then the information process through this model is the philosophical or physiological to define mental processes. This model links the human through process to the computer function, like it says that the human brain take information like a computer and process it. Then the information processing model is used when organization want their consumer brain to learn, store, manipulate the information which they got through different advertising and use it in the future, and the main objective of the company is to create a long-term memory in the brains of the consumer. Then the final model is operational model. This operational model is normally used when the organization want to evaluate the thinking, the action, or the problem, or the action taken by the consumer. In this operation model, not evaluation thinking take place in the cognitive stage. Evaluation thinkings fall under the effective stage, and action falls under the behavior stage. So, nevertheless, we can conclude about all these models that uh, irrespective of the type, characteristic, or description of the model, the first stage of all the above model is the awareness phase, allowed by comprehension. Unless awareness is created and comprehension is developed, the message cannot be reinforced through understanding of these effects in relation. Development of framework is the development of strategic framework is highly critical in this. So when these processes start work, so as we were discussing the buying behaviors, the buying behaviors are the four type of behavior is consumer when making the purchasing decision. So this is complex buying behavior, habitual buying behavior, dissonance reducing buying behavior, and variety seeking buying behavior. Consumer buying decision mostly depend on the consumer's behavior. There are great difference in consumer behavior while buying a car, various or buying a packet of chips or crisps. Marketeer or the organization successfully or make judgments on these information to make product of different kind of the consumer behavior according to the consumer behavior. A consumer buying decision depend upon the type of the product, or for example, if they go and buy a big property, a land, agricultural land, so their buyer behaving would be different. Or if they are buying a car, so their buying behavior would be different. And if they are buying a coffee, tea, fruit, or things like that, so their buying behavior will be different. These are based on the observation, and it's very clear that purchase that are more complex and expensive, like building cars and all those things, have higher deliberation and more participation in that. So consumer buying to determine the consumer buying behavior by the level of the involvements that the consumer show towards the purchase decision, the amount of risks involved in that the consumer show towards the purchase decision, the amount of risk involved in a particular purchase always be different by the buyer. Higher price goods can be tend to high risk, thereby seeking higher involvement in the buyer decision. So as we were discussing that there are four types of buying decision. So the complex buying decision is the buying behavior in accordance with the particular when consumer are buying an expensive product. A habitual buying is the behavior is depending when a consumer has low involvement in purchase decision. In this case, the consumer is perceived only a few significant difference between brands. And dissonance reducing buying behavior is the dissonance reducing buying behavior. Consumer involvement is very high. This might be due to high price and infrequent purchases. In addition, there is low availability of choices. There is very less choices in that, with less significant difference among brands. In this type, a consumer buying a product that is easily available. So variety seeking buying behavior. So when we seek the variety seeking buying behavior, or what is that buying behavior, is a variety consumer behavior involved in low. There are significant differences available in the brand. Here there consumer often do a lot of brand switching. You can go here they and there, perfume, coffees, tea, cigarettes. These are the, so as we discuss cognitive dissonance, so are reducing cognitive dissonance behavior. So what is cognitive dissonance behavior? When tension arises between persons attribute or believes that a decision that contracts those pre-existing mode of thinking. The physiological phenomena also occurs when a person chooses between two quality, alternative or equal understanding. So then this is the cognitive reducing behavior when consumer buy. So post purchasing cognition also occur. Post purchasing cognitive dissonance is the phase where we give to the state of uneasy which exists in the consumer mind after buying a product or service. You buy a car and then you think you paid too much for that. So these are the purchasing behaviors. So when making a communication, these buying behavior should be under the consideration of the marketeer. He must know the reality or transfer the, what does the product do, how does it do it, can we provide it, does it, what is the existing consumer think, how will new consumer be identified. So these are the people who think on this. So make people feel good about you before they buy, during purchase and after, and they will reward you with loyalty. So these critical elements fail and consumer will become to questioning themselves first, but why, and the second you, and if they have been made feel so full, so they will blame you instead of rewarding. So avoiding these things is good in the buying behavior process. The buyer decision process. There are 5 stages of buyer decision process: is problem recognition, information search, evaluation of alternative, purchase decision, and post purchase evaluation. These are the 5 stages when consumer are affected or if by the advertising. So he goes through these 5 stages of physiology, the cognitive stage or this stage to decide what is going on. So John Dewey introduced these 5 stages which consumer go through when they make or consider a purchase. Problem or need recognition. This is the first stage of the consumer decision process, in which the consumer is able to recognize that what is the problem or need as, and subsequently what product or kind of product would be able to meet this need. So this is the first stage. The second stage comes in when the consumer search for information. The information search stage or search for information. In this stage, the consumer decision process, during which a consumer searches for internet, external information from the friend, the catalog, and from visiting different stores and all those things, is referred to consumer memory or relocation of the product, outline, targeted, or guided by the person. External research is also conducted when a person has not prior or no prior knowledge about the product. So mean on the models of effective theory that he is not aware or not much information. So he needs to seek information from the personal sources, from word of mouth, friend, family, and public sources, online forums, blogs, groups. There are many groups. Let for example say the Park Wheel is a big car buying and selling website, and there are blogs on Pajero blogs, Nissan blogs, Sunny blogs, Mehran blogs. So people go and find information there before they want to purchase or before they make a decision to purchase a car or anything. So evaluation of alternatives stage is that during this evaluations the consumer evaluate all the product available on the scale of particular attributes, mean which he wants, which have the ability to deliver the benefit and the consumer is seeking. So purchasing during the purchase decision stage, the consumer may form an intention to buy the most preferred brand or product. The purchase decision is the fourth stage in the consumer buying process, and the post purchase decision is the stage is that behavior when the consumer assess whether he is satisfied or dissatisfied with the purchase. Post purchase behavior is the final stage in the consumer decision process when the consumer assess whether it is satisfied decision or dissatisfaction with the purchase. Consumer feels about purchase with slightly influence whether he will purchase or not. So these are the stages when the consumer go through the buying behavior decision in the process. What is cognitive awareness to purchase? This is the final stage or the third stage where the knowledge is provided or about the service or the product, and the consumer is aware, and how they process the information, the given information is the feel, and the third stage is the cognitive stage to purchase. This stage focus on the actions. It is when a company try to make a potential customer to act on the information they have, and from the information they learn and the emotion concerned with the form of buying a brand or particular complex purchases. The stages of consumer buying behavior, as we discussed, that effective stage is awareness and knowledge, and then awareness stage is cognitive phase where they start thinking, feeling about that. Then affective phase is liking, preferences and conviction about, and then the behavior stage is to make the decisions. So this all was for the understanding of the theories, the models available when we make a communication plan. So we gone through advertising, the management of advertising, then we came to the communication Markham plan, that what are the decision, what we need to focus on that, and then before we need to we understood this Markham plan, and when before the Markham plan we need to understand these theories. So it was important to understand the Markham plan first and then understand the theories on thinking about that what we want, which stage we will go, which model we will use, what is the time of the model which we have, or we are creating the plan. So this is total the decision making on the. So when cognitive advertising is advertising and its communication effects on the consumer buying behavior, it goes from one side to the brain and make you think and act. I have added some few advertisement on that, which is on the YouTube. Cognitive nice advertising. What is a cognitive advertising? Cognitive base of effective advertising. It is very important. How ads follow or persuade the people. The most effective advertising maybe when consumers are least expected for that. So it is very important things to understand all these theories, model, and how the advertising or the communication or in the integrated marketing communication works on that. So what a creative advertising by Mercedes, what does it mean? And secondly, the last two advertises which I gave is a critical approaching on the advertising. You must watch this. This critical approach is one piece of that. From the children, you can go from the age, sex, time, geographic, all could be a critical view of that, to criticize that these advertisings are basically not making the future, but it is making a future shoppers, a good shoppers from the children. So this would be your question as well, in the question assignment session. If there is any question, so you can mail me or send a message to me on the WhatsApp group that we want to come live and attend some session or question answer, or you can record your voice and send me individually. I will answer that. So thank you very much for attending the session.